Xbox just might be the key for a safer PC. We'll talk about some awesome additions coming to Game Pass this month, and has HP made the perfect monitor for your Series X? Let's discuss. Now, I'm a pretty big fan of anime and JRPGs, as you can probably tell by my Ava Unit 1 shirt, the Wings of Freedom in the back from Attack on Titan, and CBR just recently put out a list of 5 forgotten JRPGs from the Xbox 360 era that have backwards compatibility on current-gen Xboxes. And it's lists like these that really make me feel that like I'm not a real fan at all, because I looked through the list and I haven't played any of them. First off, we have Lost Odyssey, was made by Mistwalker Studios, and it features a score by the composer that worked on a lot of the Final Fantasy games. CBR actually ran an article about this game when the Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, suggesting that if you didn't like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, to play Lost Odyssey. It is widely considered to be one of the best JRPGs of that Xbox 360 generation. It features classic JRPG turn-based combat, and it follows the story of Kaim, who is an immortal that has lost his memory and is now currently serving as a soldier. And as he goes through the centuries, he meets people who are immortal and just regular plain old mortals, and they start to discover that there's a nefarious political scheme that aims to unite the whole world under one regime. When it came out, it was considered a hidden gem of the genre, and apparently the voice acting is pretty good, which is, you know, it could be a hit or miss sometimes with animes and video games that are dubbed from Japanese to English. If you play through Lost Odyssey and you find that you're a fan, may I suggest checking out Blue Dragon. Blue Dragon was the first game that Mistwalker made, followed by Lost Odyssey, and it features a lot of the same team that worked on Chrono Trigger. It also features artwork from Akira Toriyama, and that might be familiar to you, that name, if you are a fan of the Dragon Ball franchise. Nier is also on this list, and that is, yes, Nier as in Nier Automata, Nier Replicant. This is the OG game in the series. It came out on the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and it follows the story of a father who is desperately trying to save his daughter. And who knows, playing through this might just bring back the good old days of Square Enix, you know, before they went all in on NFTs. Yeah. Now, you'll notice that none of the games I just talked about are on Game Pass, which currently might be shocking to some people, but they are very cheap. Lost Odyssey, for example, if you go to the Microsoft Store right now, is $6.24 if you are subscribed to Xbox Live Gold, or if you're like me and you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. If you're looking for some JRPGs that are on Game Pass right now, I have a quick list for you. Some of them are more action-based RPGs and not true turn-based JRPGs, but you get the picture. You got Code Vein, you got Final Fantasy X through 13, Nier Automata, Dragon Quest XI, Octopath Traveler, Scarlet Nexus, and Edge of Eternity is going to be coming day one to Game Pass as well. And there are a few others. Those are just the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Now, if you play any of these games, there's a hotly debated topic amongst fans of anime and JRPGs, whether or not you should play in English versus Japanese. And if you play in English, please be kind to the voice actors. Acting in video games is very hard. Only because, you know, when you compare it to on-camera acting, when you compare it to acting in a play, you know, you have other people to work off of, you have costumes, maybe you're on a really cool set, so it's really easy to kind of slip into the world, slip into that character when you have all those things going for you. When you're acting in video games, however, you have none of that. You have just your voice. You don't even have your face most of the time if you're not doing any motion capture. You have just your voice and you're in a booth, right? So you have to imagine how hard it must be to say, hey, act like you're getting blown up by a giant octopus monster and being vaporized by a radiation beam, but you're also transforming into a werewolf. Okay, now go. Yeah, that could be pretty hard. And that goes double for these games that are voiced by Japanese actors first, and then have to be dubbed over in English. Because here's the thing, not only do you have to do all the things I just mentioned that make video game acting difficult, but you gotta do it and match the mouth flaps of someone who already did the character in another language. And as we know, what people say in Japanese doesn't always directly translate into English. I have a ton of respect for people who work as anime dub voice actors and people will dub over very famous Japanese titles like the Fire Emblem series and things like that. It's a hard job, and I hope one day that I will be voicing characters in JRPGs and anime as well. Previously, when I covered the games coming to Game Pass in January, I was obviously underwhelmed, right? We didn't have the full list. I was sitting here thinking, oh boy, I'm gonna play Paparazzi, awesome. But now we have a way clearer look on what games to expect in the month of January, and it's looking good, guys. Now, the standout here is obviously Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and that includes the first 3 Mass Effect games and all their expansions, except for Pinnacle Station. Mass Effect obviously has had a huge impact on the gaming industry. When they were first coming out, critics were raving about them, they were collecting awards left and right. The first 2 Mass Effect games are widely considered to be masterpieces, whereas the third Mass Effect game was super controversial because no one liked the ending. And of course, gamers handled that super well. They just kind of went about their day. Just kidding. They sent death threats to the staff of BioWare and drove them off social media. That seems to be a common trend, a tale as old as time, you can say, amongst the video game fandom. Now, be aware, Mass Effect is only coming to Game Pass via EA Play, which is only available if you have Game Pass Ultimate, which is the top tier of the Game Pass subscription. Spelunky 2 is also coming on the 13th, and this is a really awesome roguelite platformer. It's a cute looking game, but do not be fooled. It is brutally difficult. I really enjoyed the first one, and this one supports local multiplayer and online multiplayer up to 4 players, so you can suffer together. The Anacrusis is also going to be coming to Game Pass later this month, and when I first covered this game, I kind of glossed over it, and I regret that. I do. I didn't know that the studio behind it had the involvement of people from Valve and Riot, and the more I learn about it, the more interested I am in it. This game is basically being billed as a Left 4 Dead in space experience, but the aesthetic is more like a 1960s sci-fi kind of vibe. You play as a team of 4 as you basically fight off hordes of alien monsters with different sci-fi looking guns and gadgets. And be aware, when you play this game, it is an early access version of the game. It's officially listed as a preview on the Game Pass list of games that are coming to January, and they plan on doing that for about 9 to 12 months. Hopefully during that time, I hope that this game is able to kind of leave behind the Left 4 Dead comparisons. You know, we already kind of had a Left 4 Dead inspired game when Back 4 Blood came out in the month of October. I feel like they leaned a little bit too heavily on it's the spiritual successor of Left 4 Dead, and I feel like people were expecting Left 4 Dead, but just modern day, and when they didn't get that, they were very disappointed. And that game had the backing of Warner Brothers Studios, so hopefully this little indie studio is able to kind of stand on its own merits and provide a distinct, unique experience without having to be constantly compared to Left 4 Dead. Outer Wilds is also going to be coming back to Game Pass, and if you missed it the first time, I highly recommend that you check this game out. It's an action, adventure, survival game where the world is constantly changing. So if you're exploring a cave and you leave and you come back, that cave might be buried under all sorts of sand and inaccessible to you. Now, I've only played 3 titles that were published by Annapurna Games. I've played 12 Minutes, I've played The Artful Escape, and I've played The Outer Wilds, and The Outer Wilds is definitely my favorite out of those 3. Now, when it comes to this newest generation of consoles, the whole buzz is that they have all sorts of new hardware capabilities. They can play games at 8K, they can play games at 120 FPS. I've been hearing some different things. I've heard that if you want to play games at 120 FPS on your Xbox, your Series X or your Series S, you have to have an HDMI 2.1 monitor. And I've heard other people say, no, you don't need HDMI 2.1. You only need that if you want to play at 120 FPS and 4K. Either way, it seems that in order to lock the true, full potential of your Series X, you have to have a monitor or a TV with HDMI 2.1 support. Here's the thing about that. HDMI 2.1, from my understanding, is a relatively new technology, and because of that, there's not a lot of monitors or TVs that have HDMI 2.1 ports. And because of that, well, they're kind of expensive. There's not too many of them. Some of them can be $800, $900, $1,000, $2,000, depending on what you're looking at. The cheapest one I found when I was shopping around for monitors for my setup behind me was about like $650, $700. And to put that in perspective, I got pretty much everything you see behind me minus the consoles for around that same price. The desk, the mic arm, the shock mount, the webcam, my lights, everything that you see was about that same price. In an interesting move, HP is putting out a monitor called the Omen 27U that is specifically catered to next-gen consoles, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. How do I know that it's catered to those consoles? Well, it says so all over their website, all over the product page. This monitor is next-gen console ready. Take advantage of everything your new console has to offer with this monitor. It's plastered all over the website. It's a 4K 144Hz monitor with HDR support, FreeSync, one HDMI 2.1 port, and one regular HDMI 2. By comparison, I only have two of those things, right? I only have FreeSync and HDR support, and I love the way my monitor looks. It only goes up to 60 FPS, but I think it looks great, so I imagine, and I say I imagine because I don't actually have the Omen 27U, I've never actually used it, but I would imagine that it's gonna look really fresh. They're also sort of hopping on this trend where all gaming setups have lights like the ones you see behind me. Mine are not as fancy as other people's. They kind of stand alone. A lot of people have them attached to the back of their monitor and they have them synced up to their gameplay and music, and it looks really cool. And this monitor, the Omen 27U, has lights like these built into the backside of the monitor. So this monitor isn't going to ship until spring this year, and it's going to run $700, which is, you know, if you're a PC player, that's nothing, right? You're already used to spending thousands of dollars on your rig, thousands of dollars on not just one monitor, but maybe 3 monitors. But if you're a console gamer, I would understand if you're a little bit apprehensive of picking a monitor like this up. Especially it's like, whoa, this thing is more expensive than my Series X, what the heck? It does seem to be the cheapest option out of the current crop of monitors that have HDMI 2.1 support. So today AMD is launching its Ryzen 6000 laptop processors today, which are the first to include Microsoft's new Pluton security processors. It's this new fancy chip that is trying to bring Xbox-like security to Windows 10 devices. Basically what Microsoft is trying to do here is feature a CPU that has the same security protections of an Xbox, right? The idea is that they ship these Xboxes out with security protocols with the idea that they're trying to prevent you from hacking them. It's a little bit more difficult than, say, hacking into a PC. Pluton is baked directly into the PC and is basically the next step up from the Trusted Platform module. The new chip is basically designed to block old and new attacks that compromise your PC, and especially big ones like Spectre and Meltdown. Basically what's happening now is that TPMs are separate from existing CPUs, and people have developed ways, when they have physical connections, to steal the information flow that is communicated between the TPMs and the CPUs. And that's basically no bueno, guys. They're like, no, we don't want this. You know, I don't think they'll ever be able to completely prevent hackers and people who want to compromise your PC, but they want to bring that same difficulty of hacking into an Xbox to Windows devices. There are some security concerns already because Pluton is apparently going to be updated exclusively from Microsoft's cloud servers, and as we all know, that can be, you know, I'm not a hacker, but I imagine communication between the cloud, that's an easy target for people who are hackers. And if my words are confusing to you, maybe the CEO of AMD can explain it a little bit better. She says Ryzen 6000 series will be the first PC processors that integrate the Microsoft Pluton security processor. Our co-development work with Microsoft eliminates entire attack vectors on notebooks, better protecting critical data like system credentials, user identities, encryption keys, and personal information. In addition to this new fancy security stuff that Pluton is bringing, it's apparently also going to increase your video editing by as much as 69%. It's going to double 3D rendering performance and double 1080p gaming performance. Anyway guys, that's all the news I have for today. My name is Ray if you're tuning in for the first time, and I would greatly appreciate it if you went on over to Twitter and followed me at StayXboxReady. That's hands down the best way to get in touch with me if you have any questions regarding what you see on this channel. I also am going to be doing a giveaway soon. I'm giving away an Xbox Series X to one lucky viewer. More instructions on that coming soon. Anyway, I'm gonna go and play my favorite PlayStation exclusive, Dying Light. Yes, Dying Light, not to be confused with any other zombie game that is actually exclusive to PlayStation. We wouldn't want to make that mistake, right? Anyway guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.